Good morning, everyone. It is, 9:06, 9:07, so we're getting started real close to time this morning. We welcome you to our council meeting this morning. We're glad you're here. We're going to start off with prayer this morning. I've got Kurt Dalpin here, the pastor at the Paul Land Baptist Church, and if you would, please, sir, step up and get us started the right way.
Would you please bow with me in prayer? Father, we want to take a moment to do perhaps the most important thing we do today is to take a moment to put our eyes upon you and to wait upon you. And you tell us in your word, those that wait upon you will regain their strength, Father. So we come to you this morning and we ask for your wisdom and your strength upon these men and women that are going to be making decisions today. Father, I know this is a stressful time. It's an election time. A lot of big decisions before our city. And Father, we're in a situation where we need rain and water. So we pray for your wisdom and your direction. We pray for perseverance in the midst of the trial that we're in. We ask that you would give guidance and direction to each of these leaders today, that they would make decisions with wisdom, Father. We pray for your will to be done in the election. And God, we come to you and ask that you might send rain on this part of the country. Father, you know we are in desperate need of it. So we just come to you and ask that you might send it upon this part of the country, Father, and we pray you'd give us perseverance in the trial until you do, and we give you thanks for all the good things that you give us, and we pray that you would meet with us today. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, buddy. I was just reading the scripture this morning in the Old Testament. May the Lord shine upon you his will, and may his countenance be with you. And I thought, man, that's just what we need. Thank you, sir. And now, Miss Sarah Whitehead, if you would come forward. Sarah is a fourth grader at Cornerstone Christian, and she's going to help us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Great job.
So much. Y'all may be seated now. We do have a couple of proclamations and some recognitions today. We'll start with the proclamation for the Mental Health Awareness Month. This will be Dusty McCoy is the one that will accept it, Executive Director of the West Texas Counseling and Guidance. And if you will, bear with me as I read this. It says, whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and all Americans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions, and whereas there is a strong body of research that supports specific tools that all Americans can use to better handle challenges and protect their health and well-being, and mental health conditions are real and prevalent in our nation. And with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen shares the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention efforts. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, the mayor of the great city of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2014 as Mental Health Month in San Angelo and Tom Green County. As the mayor of San Angelo, I also call upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in San Angelo and Tom Green County to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental illnesses, the steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental health conditions. Thanks, buddy. You got a speech?
Well, thank you so much for the proclamation. We treatments are very effective today, and the problem is the stigma that's related with it, and we can't help those that if they don't come through our doors. But we do there is access here to mental health services, and mental health treatment is not a sign of weakness, and the treatment is very effective, and it's there and it's available. So thank you for your support, and thank you.
Thank you, Doug. He wants to speak. And this is also Police Officers Week, May 12th through May 16th, and we're going to offer a proclamation from them. Chief Foskey's here. Here he comes. Come on up, buddy. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15 as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. And this week is dedicated to pay tribute to those officers who have died in the line of duty, and the San Angelo Police Department will have a number of planned events to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And the members of the law enforcement agencies of San Angelo and Tom Green County unceasingly provide vital public services and play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and the freedoms of the citizens of San Angelo and Tom Green County. And it is important all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of our law enforcement agencies, recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and protecting the innocent against deception, and the weak against oppression and intimidation. Now therefore I, Dwayne Morrison, the mayor of the city of San Angelo, on behalf of the city council, do hereby proclaim May 12th through May 16, 2014 as Police Week, and call upon all citizens and organizations of San Angelo to observe this memorial occasion with appropriate ceremonies in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers past and present who by their faithful and loyal devotion to the responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities. I further call upon all citizens of San Angelo to observe May 15, 2014 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those peace officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or become disabled in the performance of duty. Mike, thank you.
Thank you. I want to invite everybody to some of the events. Friday, we start off with a banquet this coming Friday, but that's a private event. On Monday morning at 10 a.m. from the police station, we'll have a flag raising ceremony. At 1 o'clock, we have a golf tournament that is open to the public. Now it's open to the public. All the money that we raise on that particular golf tournament will go towards the Texas Police Chiefs Foundation, where we contribute. Right now, we're contributing $2,500. When an officer is killed in the line of duty within 24 hours, we make sure the family has a $2,500 check. Our goal is to raise enough to be able to provide that family $10,000 within 24 hours. And then we'll have an ecumenical service during the week as well. All that's public events. We'd like to have you, and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. San Angelo Back to School Day. We had another one for San Angelo Community Band. They will be celebrating their 25th anniversary, but she didn't show up. We didn't get the information, so there is no proclamation. So we move on to the next one, which is San Angelo's National Back to School Day. Who's going to accept this one? Michelle Sharon, come forward, please, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning.
Whereas the first ever National Back to School Day took place on May 9, 2012, and almost 1,000 local events in 49 states in the District of Columbia joined together to encourage children to safely bicycle or walk to school. National Back to School Day provides an opportunity for schools across the country to join together to celebrate bicycling. And school administrators, law enforcement, parents, public officials, school champions, parents, students, and the community can all support and participate in bicycling to school. Provides several benefits such as healthier habits, providing a cleaner environment, promoting safety and building a sense of community, and encouraging students to be part of this event can lead them to adopting healthier lifestyles and increasing physical activity. And communities that have adopted an annual bicycling event program reap the benefits of healthier, happier students, cleaner, safer streets, and quieter neighborhoods. And events such as this encourage changes in the community, such as building an environment that is more inviting for every walker and bicyclist, young and old. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby declare or proclaim May 7, 2014 as San Angelo National Back to School Day, and encourage not only parents and students, but also citizens of the community to use this day as the first step to changing the community culture by using bicycling as an alternate means for travel. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
And here's your proclamation, and you've got a chance to make a statement.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Mayor Morrison and the City Council for giving us this proclamation today. We work with, my name is Michelle Sharon. I work with West Texas Counseling and Guidance with the Youth Make a Difference program, and we consider tomorrow National Bike to School Day our pilot event for working across platforms with different community groups across the community of San Angelo in order to sort of integrate a safety awareness campaign that will allow kids, teachers, parents to take one day a year to safely bike and walk to school. So I know it's a busy time for everybody, but we'd love to see you out on your bike. Tomorrow's our pilot, and we have big plans for next year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor Morrison.
Let's take a picture. Come on, we're going to go one. You ran too quick. Slow to the trigger. Main Street accreditation. Who's going to come forward and accept this? Dale, Brenda, both of you come up. The month of May is National Historic Preservation Month, and Downtown San Angelo Incorporated has been a vital organization promoting the preservation of history, culture, and buildings in the historic downtown San Angelo, Texas, and the City of San Angelo has supported the efforts of Downtown San Angelo, Inc. in its endeavors, which have fostered economic development, preserved its history through promotional activities, and preserved the integrity of its historic structures and architectural integrity. And Downtown San Angelo, Inc. has been an integral partner with the City of San Angelo in advocating tourism in the Central Business District. And Downtown San Angelo, Inc. has received the 2014 National Main Street Accreditation, which involves programs showing above average performance in 10 categories and selection criteria focusing on planning, partnership, staffing, volunteer effort, preservation ethic, training and program assessment through reporting. Now therefore I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud Downtown San Angelo, Inc. and commend the organization for their successful annual progress as a designated Main Street community. Thank you, ma'am. And you get to make seats.
Perfect. As all of you know, no group can be successful without a lot of support from a city council, a mayor, and our COSA DC group, which is our funding agent. Over the past few years, since 2005, when downtown San Angelo became a Main Street city, we are proud to say that over $80 million has been reinvested in the downtown area. In addition to that, if you look back to the year 2005, there were only 3 businesses that were open after the hour of 5 o'clock. Today we have over 17 businesses that are open after the hour of 5 o'clock. So today there's tremendous activity in the downtown area. We continue to show growth in terms of sales tax contributions to the city, and we are proud to say that we are a downtown area that is full of entrepreneurial spirit. Most of the businesses downtown are local people who've come up with creative ideas, who've made an impact in our downtown area. And we also want to thank all of you in the audience and those that you know who have supported the downtown businesses. We're local businesses who need local support, and without your support, our downtown cannot be a successful piece of the San Angelo community. So thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Dale, do you have anything? Let's take a picture again. Thank you all very much. Thank you. And Brenda Gunner and her husband have been very instrumental in saving some of these old historical buildings, and I'm very proud of you, girl. This next recognition here gives me a great amount of pleasure. I had no idea who Mike Carrillo was. I'd never heard of him. I know that he died here a couple of months ago. And my friends at Western Towers, Daniel and Charles Anderson, sent me some information on this man, and I was absolutely amazed when I read about a true San Angelo born and raised hero. And as I began to read some information that the University of Texas had put together about this man, it literally makes your back crawl. This was a true hero, and he's from San Angelo, Texas. So I ask that we have a recognition this morning to honor, and I'm going to read this because I can't say it, Gildo Mike Carrillo. Did I get anywhere near to it? Close. That's as close as I can do, folks. I tried. But I want to read this, and then I want to present this to the family, and there's a lot of the Carrillo family here this morning, and we very much appreciate your presence, to honor what is truly a West Texas hero. Mike Carrillo was born in San Angelo, Texas on April 13, 1924, and as a young adult worked odd jobs, often accompanying his stepfather, and at the age of 18, with limited knowledge of the war in which America was embroiled, but determined to participate in the conflict, Mr. Carrillo learned how to read and how to write, and then, after passing the Drafts Board entrance exam, completed basic training at Camp Wheeler, Georgia, where he was officially inducted into the U.S. Army on September the 22nd, 1943. Mr. Carrillo was shipped out in the summer of 1944 to Churchill, England, participating in the Normandy invasion on D-Day, La Haye du France, Le Mans, Luneville, Embermenil, and Haguenau, and I apologize, I certainly am not French, as well as other parts of the Alsace-Lorraine region obviously I'm not German either, on other parts, and then the undisputed French-German border. Mr. Carrillo was discharged on November 22, 1945. He immediately re-enlisted, ultimately being discharged as a platoon sergeant on May 21, 1947 in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. During his service, Mr. Carrillo earned several honors: 2 Silver Stars, 1 Bronze Star, 1 Good Conduct Medal, 1 American Theater Ribbon, 1 Victory Medal, a European Theater Medal, an Army of Occupation Medal, a French Croix de Guerre, and a Combat Infantry Badge, in addition to a personal thank you note from President Harry S. Truman. Mr. Carrillo witnessed and faced adversity, prejudice, and discrimination throughout his life, but his determination to become an outstanding citizen never faltered. Mr. Carrillo died on February 13, 2014. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, proudly, the mayor of San Angelo, and am proudly able to proclaim that on behalf of the City Council, Monday the 12th, 2014, as Mike Carrillo Day, and encourage all citizens to remain mindful of the dedicated service of our city's local veterans and outstanding citizens. And this man truly was a West Texas born and bred hero, and it shows the type of men that we raise in West Texas.
Well, I'm humbled to been asked by the family to speak on behalf of the Carrillo family, knowing that Mr. Carrillo, as the mayor has already expressed, his determination for this great country that we live in, to serve it and to be a proud citizen. And as the mayor already said, you know, we here in West Texas have a spirit that goes beyond in determination for our country and our love for our country. So on behalf of the Carrillo family, we thank you very much.
Thank you, Dale. And I did present that to his widow and also to his daughter. So we thank you for being here. And that obviously concludes the recognitions and proclamations. And just as a special note, Stephanie Johnson, I know, was here. She's still here. There was a deal in New York, wasn't it, where the Supreme Court of New York has dealt with the ability of meetings such as this as to be able to say a prayer before we begin. The Supreme Court of New York did rule by a 5-4 vote that it was allowable and I think in San Angelo, Texas, it's not only allowable, that it is necessary, especially in the days that we have now when we need rain and we need the deity to send it. So thank you, everyone. All right, it is now time for public comment, and this is the part of the agenda where we allow people to come up and speak, pro or con. Let me read the legalities. The council takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the council at this time. The council may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. On public hearing items, public input will be received on each item immediately following the council discussion and prior to any action on the item. Each member of the public shall make the remarks from the podium and begin by stating their name. Remarks by each citizen will be limited to 3 to 5 minutes unless waived by a council member for all speaking on that matter. No individual will be allowed to speak more than once on any subject until every citizen wishing to speak has been given the opportunity. So we'll open this up to the public first. If there is anyone from the public that wishes to approach the council and speak, this is your opportunity. State your name. You've got 3 to 5. Start off with Mr. Thomas.
Harry Thomas, community volunteer. Seeing the veterans up here that we just honored, I want to invite the whole community, especially the veterans and their families, to a luncheon that's going to be held at the Elks Lodge on May the 24th from noon to 5, free to all veterans and their families. We want the community to come out and help us celebrate with the veterans, and we'd ask that you give a nominal donation for your meal. But other than that, we want all veterans to come out and do that. Another item, because I am involved in so many other organizations, the Boys and Girls Club is going to have a golf tournament on May the 31st. And some of you that are sitting up here this morning have been involved in helping put this thing together for us. And that is going to be at Quicksands, and we're looking for players and hole sponsors. I know Marty himself is designed for a whole sponsor. I know Johnny Silvas and the city manager Daniel Valenzuela have been instrumental in helping organize this. I'll be meeting with the Pan American Golf Association this evening to try to go over this, but it's open to the community. We have a 91% graduation rate for those children that could come to the club at least 2 days a week. All of the kids that are in elementary and middle school that come to the club at least 2 days a week are on the A or AB honor roll. So we know our programs are working. Come out and support us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Harry. And y'all have done a wonderful job out there with that Boys and Girls Club. I commend you. Yes, sir.
Members of the council, I'm Sam Allen. I represent the Butler Farms Homeowners Association. I may be premature in speaking at this point. We'd like to be heard on item number 7 on the consent agenda.
I'll get you then, Sam.
Very well.
Charlotte's already pulled it.
Okay.
Thank you, buddy. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mayor. How you doing?
Fine, thank you, sir.
I'm Mike Buck with the Workforce Development Board. Today I'm just here for the West Texas Energy Consortium, just to offer you all an invite to the conference. On the June 3rd to 4th, the conference, our second conference, will be held up in Abilene. June 3rd and the evening is just a no social network, but the June 4th promises to be a pretty good, exciting conference. Just to let you know where it's gone since December when we had our first one. We've gone from about 200 members to well over 600 members and businesses. We've got one small grant from Shell. We've worked on a second grant for $350,000 through the Texas Workforce Commission and Wagner Pizer, and it's growing and growing. We're looking for a self-sustaining organization somewhat like the Eagle Ford Shell. So this conference looks to be a pretty exciting one. We'll be doing we have two things that's pretty interesting to me. One is Ray Perriman from the Perriman Group will be speaking. He's our keynote speaker, nationally recognized economic, financial analysis, and more than that, he's actually fun to listen to, which is hard to imagine in some of these folks. Second is Tom Tunstall from USTA will be releasing phase 2 of his economic report that we commissioned him to start about a year ago, and looking forward to results there. But I'd like to offer y'all the invite to come up and visit, primarily the 4th of June from about 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, whole wide range of events. And if you can take a look at our website, that'll give you the sign-up information, anything else. But if you have questions, as always, give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I've heard Mr. Perryman speak. He is a tremendous speaker.
You bet. Thanks.
Anyone else care to approach the council at this time? Anything you want to compliment or otherwise? This is your opportunity to approach. If no one wishes to, then I'm going to turn it over to the council. Are there any comments? Well, let's start with moving consent to regular agenda. Does anyone?
I have public comment.
Oh, you do? Charlotte's pulling about half of the consent agenda and putting it on the regular. She's pulled 6, 7, 9, 11, and 12. So those 5 we will talk about in regular. Anybody else want to pull the rest of them? Rodney?
No, I'm good with those.
Mr. Self?
No.
Johnny?
No, sir.
How about you, Don?
No, sir.
Okay, then we will pull 6, 7, 9, 11, and 12. Now, we'll take some comments.
Yes, sir. I had some phone calls, and I believe this is best place as any. I truly expected to see the ordinance first draft brought today with reference to all of the changes that we had made at last meeting with had to do with the fire code, and it's not here. And I know that I've received phone calls as other council members, and if we could just have a quick explanation as to why it wasn't on the agenda and when we can expect it. Possibly from...
We have we have the item on the next council agenda. There were some, but from my understanding, some legal items that need to be corrected, and we'll have it on the next city council agenda.
Any other comments from council? Mr. Rudney?
The one comment that I got on this was that, and I'm just going to toss this out there, that this was pushed in order for there possibly to be another city council sitting up here, or at least 2 other members possibly. And I hope that is not true. I truly hope that that's not true. And all the hard work that we as a council and the group of builders have gone through to get to this point, we need to make sure that this goes through. If you're a resident out there and this council does change and something does change on how this was all set forward, I would get up here in force and I would be demanding that they do what they said that they were going to do.
I do want to make a comment about that. We do have a direction from the city council. As far as the city staff is concerned, we definitely want to make sure that we follow that direction. I do want to reassure the council and also the community that by no means is there any reason to kind of delay or trying to purpose to delay here. We understand that direction. We will have the item on the agenda for the next city council meeting, and we'll move forward on it.
And as a member of this council that does plan on being here at the next meeting, I don't want to rehash this again. We had enough of it last time. There was too much blood left over when we got through. We don't want to do this again. Johnny?
Yes, sir. I do have a couple of concerns from some citizens that have called me, and this is for the sake of transparency. And I know maybe Jane Flores has already heard about it, but on the intersection of Webb Street and Bird Street, there's a yard out there that they collect tires, and I believe it's Wilson Tires, and they're very concerned because they've seen the rattlesnake population increase, skunk and other varmints out there that are really causing havoc around that neighborhood. So that's one thing we need to look at. I was just approached again by one of the gentlemen that was here earlier, Mr. Montelongo, on Gunner Street, and I think Shane, I visited with him about it. He said nothing was done on it. I know there's a lot of increase in traffic back there, 18-wheeler traffic, so I don't know what became of it. I don't remember if he called me back, Shane, or not, but I just want to throw that out. And there was something else, and and I apologize for being late. There was something else, Mayor, and I can't think of it right now. Yes, I do. And Daniel knows about this, but there is, I would like to see what we can do to tweak the policy that we have on the workman's comp for folks that are wanting to cater at public facilities. So I think that's one thing we need to look at, if at all possible, here in the near future. I think there's folks that are concerned that, do they really need this $10,000 workman's comp policy? Some do, some don't. So there's, I'm caught in the middle of whether some do and some don't. So I'd like to add that, and maybe that's a future agenda item, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
Chief, did you hear that, sir?
Yes, sir. We actually have a review of the contract that we have with those vendors that service the different facilities for the city. We'll have the contract for review by the city council at the next city council meeting.
Thank you, sir. Marty, do you have anything?
No.
Charlotte?
I wasn't quite finished with
I'm
the
sorry.
item on the agenda. I would like to ask, I think it would be very helpful in communication. We could have saved this time if the council members had been advised before today the reason that that item was not on the agenda. We could have answered the concerned calls before today. So I would appreciate if something is removed and not showing up, if we've got an explanation in the future. And the other item, I just want to expound on what Mr. Velasquez said about the spirit of San Angelo. The mayor and I had just returned from Washington, D.C., and I can tell you that San Angelo, Goodfellow Air Force Base, is known very well, and good thoughts of it, and I can narrow it down to exactly what Mr. Velasquez said, if the mayor would let me. It has to do with the spirit of our people in San Angelo, so continue living that spirit and being that way, because it's known in a good way, and I wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Don, do you have anything, sir? I do have one, and I've received 2 calls this week from contractors that cannot get through to permits. And they have called, and obviously, unbeknownst to me, obviously we started a new phone system this week, and the 2 contractors have called me, have said they punched buttons until their fingers hurt and can never get to a human being. And it is very, very time consuming, and they are very concerned. I'd like to, Patrick, I guess that's your call, sir. I'd like to know what's going on, who changed the phone system, and why didn't we know anything about it? And maybe we need to change it back so that we got a human being on the other end.
And Mayor, I got a same call like that. I just remember, Patrick, what it does do is when they call a certain extension, it doesn't roll over to somebody else. And so they're stuck and they leave a message, don't know where they're, and they never hear back from them. So that's the problem. It doesn't roll over to maybe some other potential person out there that could help them. So
there may be some glitches. And Patrick Howard, for the record, Development Services Director. I did write up below something to sort of explain what we did. Since assuming the role in late February, staff and I have taken a number of action steps to address departmental policies, processes, and procedures with the ultimate goal of improving customer service, fostering a business-friendly work environment, and creating greater efficiencies, thereby improving staff productivity. Examples of such include the creation of development task force, marketing and continuing to offer the design review committee, separating out the functions of site plan and plat review, creating a temporary centralized receptionist to greet walk-in customers. However, based on a number of complaints I had received about frequent occurrences of customers not able to reach an appropriate staff person, I felt like immediate attention needed to be placed. And so therefore, we implemented a system, an automated system, which you have spoken about. The previous system required an individual to have to transfer you to an actual extension. This proved to be very inefficient. It worked for some, but not for the masses, because I, again, since being here, had received a number of complaints about folks not able to get through when the lines were busy. And so as it stands currently, the system allows for, after dialing the number, you're only required to hit one number and you'll actually get a live person. I think as it relates to some of what has happened initially was because folks, and we could have done a better job of advertising that we were switching over to a system, probably weren't aware of that and immediately heard a voice automated or recorded message and assumed that no one was picking up. But however, there are 6 options once you dial the number, and you are automatically transferred to an individual who will direct you to the appropriate staff person. We believe this is more efficient. In the end, and in the long run, it will provide for greater efficiencies, and we will hopefully not have the issue related to staff being inundated with calls and not able to transfer because of the volume. So that was our rationale for doing it. There's quite a number of other departments that actually have an automated system, including Animal Services, Stormwater, the Employee Clinic, SAPD, the Help Desk, the Airport, the Garage Sale Hotline, Utility Maintenance, Nursing, Utility Billing, Chlorine Info Hotline, Water Conservation, the Fire Department, Economic Development Department, and the City Clerk's Office. So in doing this, I didn't see that as being outside of the realm of what was maybe traditionally accepted in some cases, although we do have a large number of customers that are used to actually dialing and having someone immediately answer the phone. So we apologize for the communication not being clear as it relates to that, but we believe that if the community is patient with us, they will adjust to the system and find it to be more useful and more user-friendly in the end.
Thank you, Patrick.
Mayor, I have one last comment, I promise.
No, next to last.
Next to last,
Yes.
okay, you gotta. But seeing Chief Vasquez back there has reminded me of a phone call I got a couple of days ago. We had the unfortunate incident happen down at the river where the young man drowned, and rumors started flying around about what this kid was on, and some kind of the K2 conversation came up, whether we have cracked down on that synthetic drug or not. And the parent was very concerned that we really need to educate those kids out there. And of course, Dr. Bonds needs to be in the conversation. But what are we, or what is SAPD? Have they? I know that there was a sting operation in maybe latter part. I don't remember last year, but hopefully those locations aren't selling that stuff anymore that we know of. But just want to throw that at you, Chief. That I did get a phone call from a very concerned parent. So,
thank you. I hate these automated systems.
I understand.
Is there a magic number? I know I've got two of them that I call regularly, and I have finally found the magic number that I can punch when I
If
first
you dial
start.
5, you'll automatically get to an individual.
5 will get
I didn't wanna
you to
let
a
that out,
human
but
being.
You hit 5. Well, any of the options actually will get you to an individual, but 5 is actual receptionist.
That's what we needed, a magic number so we can get through all of this stuff.
Okay.
Thank you, Patrick. All right. If someone would be willing to move that we approve the consent agenda items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, and 13, we'll get this part of the agenda taken care of.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second that we approve the consent agenda 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 13. Do I have any public comment on this? Do I have any further council comment on this? If not, call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Drop a 6-0 on it. Number 6, consideration of authorizing city manager to renew recreational and agricultural leases with all current tenants holding over leases that expired December 31, 2013, authorizing city manager designate to execute documents as may be necessary or convenient to the stated purpose. Ms. Priest?
Yes, sir. Is there a question?
Yes, I do. It says consideration of authorizing blah, 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 blah. It says recreational and agricultural leases and agricultural leases. That's in there twice, with all current tenants holding over on leases. I understand all of that, but what about the commercial leases?
The commercial leases were not up for renewal at this time. This was only the recreational and agricultural leases. And this was pertaining to the lease rates that were approved by council in April of 2014.
Mr. Fleming?
Is that, so the commercial lease that's right there on the river, on the loop, is that part of this?
No, that they're specifically commercial leases, and they are not up for renewal at this time.
Okay, and when we, last year, the end of the summer, we didn't vote to allow that owner to have his resident, because part of that property is residential. Is his lease coming back up to allow him to have those back?
I'm not sure which property you're talking about.
It's on the back side of that. The commercial is on the front right up against the bridge, and then there's 2 pieces of property right behind that, directly behind that. They're both residential. They're ranch estate. Do you know?
I don't know.
We want to make sure if we're approving these, my opinion is that we go ahead and give him the RE, just like everybody else has gotten over there. and then we need to discuss the commercial. I think he should have the commercial also, but we need to discuss the rates on the commercial. We haven't figured out how much the commercial rate is going to be and what the rules are going to be for those commercial.
Well, the commercial lease rates have been established. These pertain to only those leases along the Concho River that became due December 31st of 2013. The leases were for 5 years at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The leases ended. Council had not looked at a rate increase in approximately 30 years.
Right.
So council did do a minimal increase in April of 2014 to do the minimal increase only on those leases that are recreational and agricultural. They do not affect commercial leases.
Charlie?
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
So
Rodney.
are we going to give him back his because we basically, in a sense, took away that commercial lease and the 2 ranch estate leases from that individual, that owner. Are we giving them back to him?
I'm not familiar with the file that you're speaking of.
Well, Mr. Fleming, the thing that concerns me in that is I'm almost positive that you cannot have a commercial lease when it convenes you and a residential when it convenes you, that your piece of land has got to be established as one or the other. You can't have both.
And the item that I was speaking of is item number 6. Item number 7 is to approve all new commercial, new recreational and agricultural leases. Item 7 is to approve leases that have not yet been entered into by the city. And that pertains to the 4 properties, which are the 4 leased properties, which are Becker, the church, M.K. Allen, and one of the HOAs. So those are new leases, and that's item number 7.
Which property is his property over there? Is it M.K. Allen?
It is.
It is? Is that right, Mike? Okay.
But
So,
right.
number 7 will take care of his problem?
Okay.
But
Item
could you
s-
address number 6? My question is to if a piece of property is owned by the one person, should it be 2 separate leases if one is residential and the other portion of the property is owned commercial?
Ms. Farmer, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Okay, you had just stated that a portion of the property, one end of the property was commercial, the other end was residential, is what you had stated. Well, what I'm saying is you can't.
That's what I
Yes,
was
because
I
I'm
knew
not
I heard
familiar
it.
with that property.
Thank you.
And it is that way.
And-
Part of it is commercial. All of that stuff in the front is commercial. And
Yes,
the
sir.
stuff in the back is all RE.
So does
Yes,
it
sir.
require 2 different leases? Is
That's what I'm saying,
Right.
is if, since it's residential and portion is commercial, you can't flip whenever you want it to suit you. Shouldn't it be 2 separate leases?
Yes.
Is
The-
what I
the-
feel. It's
The
a,
recreational and agricultural leases do not allow any development on the property, and they are strictly for 3-year terms. There are no construction, no improvements placed on the property. It's strictly for recreational or agricultural use. If you have small goats or whatever you want on the property abutting the river, you can have those on that property.
that would answer the question. It would have to be 2 separate leases because you just said there can be no improvements.
Correct.
So if a person had a portion of the land that was residential, it has to be classified as a residential lease, and those prices would pertain, and the portion of it that's commercial would be commercial.
Well, I'll admit I am thoroughly confused, Charlotte.
I think that lease has to be divided. I think we're going to have to do something because that commercial lease, I believe, does run in front of the RE down there. I believe that's all one piece. That strip right there is all one piece. And really, it should be divided where the commercial piece ends. It should be a property line should go from that piece all the way to the river, and that below, which is south of there, should be all ranch estate.
So are you wanting
Ms.
to?
Bowling?
And good morning, council, and may it please council. We're on number 6, so perhaps we could concentrate on that item, which pertains to the holdover leases, and then as we move to the next one, if that's the subject matter, but I think maybe we should just complete this item.
Point of order.
Thank
Okay,
you.
commercial leases are not included in item number 6.
No, ma'am. These are strictly recreational and agricultural leases. The term is 3 years, and it has this set rate, which was approved by council at the last council meeting in April.
Yeah.
And the recreational and agricultural, there's no improvements.
There's no improvements allowed on the recreational agricultural lease
Motion
property.
to approve is presented.
Second.
Any further council comment on this? Any comment from the public on this? Motion has been made to accept number 6 as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Put a 6-0 on that. Number 7, consideration of authorizing city manager to execute new recreational and agricultural leases with Becker, River Canal Estates, Glen Meadows Baptist Church, M.K. Allen, and authorizing the city manager to execute documents as may be necessary or convenient to the stated purpose. Ms. Priest?
Yes, sir. May I answer any questions on this property?
Well, it says agriculture and recreational leases for number 7.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
no improvements, but there are improvements at the Glen Meadows Baptist Church and I believe at the River Canal Estates. Can you speak to that?
There are no improvements on the River Canal Estates. The Glen Meadows Baptist Church, there were, part of their parking lot does extend beyond the property that they recently purchased. That's why they're asking to enter into a recreational agricultural lease on that property. There will be no additional improvements allowed on that property, and the properties are not ever for sale. They're not part of a Lake Nasworthy residential property.
This doesn't include their rec camp?
No,
The building
ma'am.
does
No,
not
ma'am.
include the rec camp?
No, ma'am.
Well, that's what is confusing me.
It's a small strip of land between the canal and Knickerbocker Road. And again, these leases, as with the item 6, do not allow any improvements.
Are no improvements allowed? Motion to approve is presented.
Second that motion.
Any further council discussion? Any discussion from the public? Sam?
Good morning. I'm Sam Allen. I represent the Butler Farms Homeowners Association. I was confused whether the approval was just of the 2 named leases or whether the M.K. Allen lease is still under consideration.
M.K. Allen is on this.
All of the above, yes.
Very well.
It's Becker, River Canal Estates, Glen Meadows Baptist, M.K. Allen.
Then, good morning, and I represent the Butler Farms Homeowners Association, owners of what would be property to the southwest, I believe. And we're here today to ask the City Council not to authorize the execution of this lease. And we have 3 pretty basic points to support that. Number 1, any use that we can foresee at this point falls neither under the category of agricultural or recreational use. Part of the property that abuts the 9.77 acres is commercial. It's zoned commercial. And the council will recall that recently there's been a zone change to adapt that property for use and sale as a commercial property. So with regard to that section that abuts, of the 9.77 that abuts that commercial zone property, that use is not going to be agricultural or recreational. So that's our point in regard to that portion of the 9.77 acres. Continuing down the river to the south towards River Valley, our position there is that the use of that property has not been established. There have been no zoning, have been no covenants and restrictions. There's been some clearing of the land there. There's been a recent proposal to make that into an RV park. And so our position there is that unlike some of these other areas where there's an established use, there are covenants and restrictions that govern the use of the adjoining property that ensure that it's going to be recreational in nature. This is still wide open, and the owner is not declared or really committed to any particular use. For that purpose, we feel that that exposes that riverfront to risk in that the owner could claim that improvements and other money invested in the property would be a justification for a future use that does not match the use that's intended for under these leases. Finally, I would understand if the corporation, the MK Allen Corporation, the owner, would have a concern with this lease going to someone else. There's a tradition and custom that these properties, these leases are reserved for the adjacent owners. And I'm here to make it clear that we don't necessarily want this to go to somebody else. We simply want for the use to be established and for the regulations and rules to be put in place to where the city can be assured that the use of this leased property is as intended and required by the lease, and that is agricultural or recreational. So we'd ask that this lease be pulled until a further time when it can be more properly identified and the owner's use could be ensured to be in compliance with the lease.
Thank you, Sam. Anyone else?
My name's Mike Walters, and I represent MK Allen. Boy, this is really a contentious deal, isn't it? The property, Sam, is zoned R&E, and the lease says that that property is going to be used for agriculture and recreational. That is our intent. Even though part of the property is zoned commercial, we don't plan to build anything on it. We just want to clean it up and make it look better. We have no position to build anything on any of that. The property is R&E. As far as an RV park, you guys have pretty much shut that down with the 1,000-foot barriers and everything else. Now we're looking at homes and subdivisions and things like that. And we've got the front to develop commercially. Now the variance that Sam regarded to back there, that was on the other end of the property on River Valley Lane, if you recall. It has nothing to do with this property. All we're asking for is to give us a lease on that property, and if I got to write 2 checks for a commercial and a resident or an R&E, that's fine. I don't care. But I would like to have both of those leases, whether it's commercial and R&E, and let me get on with cleaning up the property. I'm not going to build anything on it. The commercial will be just like the ag and recreational. I don't plan to put anything on the property. Now, does that clear that up for you, Sam, in Butler Farms? Does that work for you?
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Cindy? I just want to make sure I understand. There can be no development period on those leases, right?
Recreational and agricultural leases are for recreational use only. There can be no improvements placed on the leased premises.
Okay.
And
Rodney?
But can he I'm sorry, Don.
go ahead, Ron.
But can he clean, when Mr. Walters is talking about cleaning it up, what can he do as far as cleaning it up?
The lease states that they can remove some smaller tree saplings. If they remove larger trees, they do have to advise the city and get permission from the city before any larger trees are removed. The underbrush can be cleared away. Just the trash picked up, it would then become their responsibility to maintain the property.
Let me ask you this: does Butler Farms have, and I know the answer to this, do they have a recreational area that's a agricultural lease right now?
They have a recreational and agricultural lease, and that was on item 6, part of the renewal.
And it's all clean. It's pretty much empty. It's pretty much an empty field right now.
It is. I think they've maintained
They've
that.
cleaned it up over the years, and so
Maintained it.
that whole neighborhood has the use of going to that area to use for recreational, just as the intended purpose of what we're asking for here, to fish and picnic or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Right?
They have a recreational agricultural lease with the city.
Right. They just cannot build a building there, just as he cannot build a building on his.
Correct.
Don?
Well, further on that, he can't even develop it under the auspices that we're approving this, right? In other words, there's no real commercial part of this. It's all R&E.
It is it's
Nope.
recreational
Recreational.
agricultural lease.
Right.
And is for a 3-year term, a set term, and the fees were established by council. We did have a request from 4 entities to enter into new leases, and
this
that's
is
why
one
we
of them.
split it out. Item 6 was to renew those that are existing, and item 7 was to enter into new leases.
Okay, good deal. Thanks.
We did discuss the commercial terms, the dollar amount.
No, ma'am, not commercial, only recreational and agricultural.
I'm going to...
Can I say something right here? The commercial property, it is commercial property. It is what it is. It was that way when I bought it. all I want is an agricultural and recreational lease. I'm not asking for a commercial lease, even though it is commercial. Right now, if somebody buys that property from me somewhere down the road, if they come back to you guys, they've got to approve a commercial lease. I'm just asking for ag and recreational on that particular part. I don't want the commercial part.
Well, what bothers me is in looking at history in our packets, on the other item, recreational is defined as no permanent structures are allowed, and I'm automatically thinking of the man camp out there on Arden Road, that those aren't permanent structures. So for my part in this, I'm going to pull my motion, and I'm going to ask that we consider these one at a time, and that's where I stand right now. I'm going to pull my motion based on, I want a better understanding and clarification as to where we have a commercial or a recreational lease on that one piece of property.
Well, by the agenda item, we are approving recreational and agricultural leases. That's all. That's all we are doing. And on an agricultural and recreational lease, there can be no structures built. I think I've heard that 3 or 4 times. Is that still right?
Yes, sir, that's
Yes.
correct.
And I wanted to add, if I might, Counsel, we're treating every party to each of these leases equally, the present intent within the 4 corners, not a future envisioned intent or speculated intent. This is what they're entitled to.
Yes.
Period.
If someone else wants to make a motion, Johnny, does your second remain?
Do I keep my second, or
Do you-
somebody else makes a?
If someone else, Charlotte has pulled her motion. Does someone else want to reinstate it?
I make a motion to accept as presented.
Does your second remain?
I'll keep my second.
Okay, we do have a motion, we do have a second. Any futures from the comments from the council?
The one thing I had, and you said this perfect, Ms. Bowling, is that it's a fair thing about all 4 of these people are asking for the very same thing. And I do have a problem with pulling him out and saying he can't do it, and clearly the church out there has already gone over the boundaries, and we're giving them, a free pass on that. And I want them to have a free pass on that. I see them not as a commercial entity, but, as a religious entity. So I think it's only fair to go ahead and put these 3, if we either say all 4 of these don't get it, or all 4 do get it, I think it's my opinion.
Johnny?
City, I just want, on the recreational part of it, so that means, no improvement means he can't go out there and add picnic tables or gazebos or just anything like that?
He could place temporary
Temporary
structures, which would be a picnic table or
Right.
a gazebo,
Right.
but they would have to be removed. Before the release is renewed, we make sure that they're in good standing and the property continues to be
Okay.
used on the same terms by which it was
That
leased.
sounds a little better. I mean, if
Right.
it's recreational, my gosh, I would hope they could do a little bit of
Right. and
something.
A lot of the properties that are leased do have picnic tables. They abut the river, so they do have a little garden shop or a little garden area.
Okay, I'm good.
Any further comment from the public? Do have a motion, do have a second, let's call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Put a 5-1 on that one, please. Going on to number 9, consideration of approving variances of the city code for the 6th annual Simply Texas Blues Festival on May 10, 2014. Ms. Pena.
Morning, Mayor and Council. Can I answer any questions, Ms. Farmer?
Yes, Ms. Pena, I pulled that because I wanted to take the opportunity to remind you of the last festival that we had down there in May, and how out of control and people using businesses, water hydrants, and for their little cook tents. And I just want to be reassured that this will not be the same situation, that precautions are in place to keep encroaching of other businesses down to a minimum, and that we have proper police attendance.
To answer your question, when this application came through back in early March, it was vetted by the police department as well as other city internal departments. That question about police officers, did we have enough last year, came up, and they did increase that this year.
Okay.
They have, between the hours of noon and 6, 2 officers that are there the entire time, and from 6 to midnight, 6 officers that patrol the area. They did receive written statements from all of the businesses in the area that do support this event. They do know that it's going to occur and are okay with it.
Thank you. Motion to approve is presented.
Welcome.
Second.
And I was there last May, Mrs. Farmer, and it did not get out of control.
No, it
We
was-
had a couple of people that
was good.
hooked their water hoses onto a water spigot. That's not supposed to happen, but it did not in any way get out of control, and it won't this year. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Do I have any further comment from the council? Have any comment from the public on this? Motion has been made to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Drop a 6-0 on that one. Number 11, consideration of ratifying the City of San Angelo Development Corporation's adoption of prioritization of goals as set on March 12, 2014, and approved on April 23, 2014. Mr. Roland Pena.
I'm here to answer any questions.
Yes,
Would you-
Mr. Pena, I'm curious to the goals that are in there. I know that almost a year ago, the mayor had instructed staff, and he got a vote on it, and it was unanimously approved to change the bylaws back to where they originally were with the exceptions in there, and that has not been done. I am curious if it is in the goals to reverse that as the mayor had requested that we unanimously voted on. That is the portion of eligibility as to who is eligible to apply for a COSA DC grant or loan. And that was done in July of last year, wasn't it, Mr. Mayor?
It was where ethics, where someone on the development board or someone on the city council could not apply for any type of tax money until they had been off of the board or the council for 6 months. And we changed that in January of 12. We took that long-standing ethics away and we allowed it to happen. And a member of the board and a member of this council did ask for and receive COSA DC money. And that's the very first thing I did when I took over, is put that on the agenda, and we changed it back. And it was a unanimous vote that we reinstall that ethics so that no one on this council and no one on the COSA DC board would be able to ask for or receive government monies, tax monies, until they'd been off of the board of the council for 6 months.
That's all I was asking, to make sure that it was included in the goals, because to date it has not been reversed.
Well, you're catching me by surprise.
Schneeman
But that's
knows all
okay. But
about
that's
it.
okay. I believe Bob has worked on that ethic clause.
Yeah.
But if you look at the latter part of those goals, I do have the bylaws. There are some changes that need to be made to the bylaws, and I will make sure that I review that section and make sure that happens.
And it wasn't just the people on the board, it was also your close relatives.
That's right. That's right.
And that's where the problem, I think, came
If
in.
you went back and put it the way it was, it's
Yes.
a real simple process.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to work on.
And I went to on the DC board after we've made a vote, and the board approved it. They approved it. I think Bob was going to tweak the language a little bit, and I never heard
It's
anything
never
more
been
about
done.
it. But I think they put it back just exactly like it was.
Let me just confirm that for you.
Get with Schneeman on it. He
Okay.
knows. He's aware.
Was that it?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have further comment from council? Do I have comment from public? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Number 12, consideration of adopting a resolution denying an increase in rates requested by Atmos Energy Corporation, Mid-Tex Division, submitted on or about February 28, 2014, under the rate review mechanism, finding Atmos request unreasonable, directing Atmos Energy to reimburse the city's rate case expenses, authorizing the city's participation in appeals Atmos may take denying its requested increase, requiring delivery of the resolution to the company and the city special counsel, finding that the meeting complied with the Open Meetings Act, declaring an effective date, making other findings and provisions related to the subject. Ms. Bowling.
Yes, do you have questions? I think what you've articulated by reading the caption is precisely what has been recommended by our counsel, Mr. Herrera from Herrera and Boyle. He's been representing this group of cities of which we are a member in the face of failed negotiations, good faith negotiations regarding Atmos's increase. We have determined that we must, or it's been recommended by Mr. Herrera, that we deny and participate in litigation on Atmos's appeal.
Charlotte?
My question was to make absolutely certain that this and its content was exactly as we had discussed. It's been several months ago. the lag in coming to council for approval, concerns me, or
Well-
just want a reminder that this is what was discussed and decided on by council.
This was recently brought to us because Mr. Herrera has been negotiating. So with regard to council's desires not to approve an increase, this has been finessed as late as last week. Mr. Herrera brought now the consensus of the city, and it did evolve in the failed negotiations. So I'm not sure what you're speaking of. The idea would be that council wouldn't be approving Atmos's request for an increase.
No, that's not my idea, and I agree with this, and I do recall that we had discussed it. It has just been a while. Now, I was not aware negotiations were still going on, and
Yes.
that accounts for the time frame. That accounts for the time frame. And I'm good with that, but I wanted to make sure that we made the public aware that this isn't something that we decided overnight or that you decided and for the council to approve, that this has been ongoing, and I just wish that it came
Yes.
to maturity a whole lot sooner. So motion to approve is presented.
Thank you.
Second.
They asked for more money than what we think they need, and we are denying their rate increase. I think this is great. Do I have a motion, a second? Any further comment from council? Have any comment from public? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Put a 6-0 on that one. It's 10:13. I'm calling a 10 to 15 minute break. It is 10:33. If everyone would take their seat, we will call this meeting back to order. Next item on the agenda will be under G, public hearing and comment. Number 14, consideration of awarding bid FC 0114A for the installation of an HVAC system and insulated roof at the Fort Concho Bay 3 Stables to Emerine Mechanical Incorporated of Merkel, Texas, in the amount of $174,975. Brother Bluthart, you are on, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Council, good morning. Given the weather of yesterday and the expected weather of today, this is probably as timely an issue as we will have on this agenda. The agenda memo pretty much covers the overall. We do need to reiterate we've made every effort to attract local bidders. This was bid once. We had to throw out the first set of bids because they were basically unserviceable, unsigned, and no bid bonds. Rebid it, and that's why we're here today. We did make on the second effort, we did send printed packages to all 19 on the A list for air conditioning. Even called many of them and just said this was a good project and would appreciate their consideration. Received 3 bids, 2 local, 1 out of town. Unfortunately, again, the 2 locals were unsigned and no bid bond, including one firm that on the previous round unsigned, no bid bond. So here we be. City Manager's office requested that we do as much research as possible on the out-of-town firm. We've looked at all their references, including 2 from San Angelo. I called them all. They're all sterling. The issue of going with the alternate for the inside slim units and the exterior insulated roof makes perfect sense to staff. We've researched that. We think it is the best long-term investment for that building, which, as many of you know, is one of our hallmark buildings for rentals and parties. So I stand ready for any questions. We have my Chief of Maintenance, Ed Holcomb, here for answers to any technical questions, and we are yours for any questions.
I know we've been working on this a long time, hadn't we, Bob?
Probably since we bought the building in September of '97, but only seriously in the last couple of years, yes. This is the last great step to make this a 12-month-a-year facility. It is a very, very popular facility.
It is a very nice facility. And I did go through your bids. You did send them out to the locals.
Yes, sir.
They didn't answer them. So I appreciate the efforts.
We are in business too, and we wish to support local, and we don't know really why. I think part of it is just the blessing of too much work out there. And I guess that's a good problem to have, but not my situation at the moment.
You're going to use hot tax, you're going to use some of the money that you have, and you're going to use private donations. Am I correct, sir?
The original budget was $100,000, which you allocated to us for this fiscal year. We're $75,000 short. Our initial proposal was to split the difference between our fund balance and additional hot money. That's certainly one option. Several of you at the pre-briefings have suggested that perhaps this should be an all hot money issue, and certainly I'm not going to deny that, but that's your call.
Charlotte?
Mr. Mayor, with our Christmas at Old Fort Concho falling short this year and his budget, his funds falling short, I'm not inclined to use his reserve money, that he's going to need that before his year's over for other items, and I would prefer to use hot tax money for the balance of it.
I'm totally with you, Charlotte.
Well, I'll make the motion that we approve this with the funds coming from that source.
I'll second that motion.
Certainly don't have a problem with it, because you did have your fundraiser, your big fundraiser was not successful as successful as you hoped.
We had the climatic.
The weather was.
effort.
I would love to have some weather like that again today.
Not likely.
But General, next time don't order the cold weather like you did.
I ordered 62 degrees and a light southwest breeze, and I'm going to check with Quartermaster tomorrow.
We do have a motion to approve this using hot money, hotel occupancy tax money.
One
Yes.
question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Council, would you like to include in your motion authorization for the city manager to execute a contract once it's created?
So amended.
Who seconded that?
I second it.
Johnny.
Will you amend your
I'll
second?
amend my second to include her amendment.
Amended. Do we have further discussion from council? Do I have discussion from the floor? Motion has been made that we approve this long overdue air conditioner system for the stables at Fort Concho in the amount of $174,975 to Amarine Mechanical Incorporated, Merkel, Texas. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Colonel
and
Bob,
the-
we have wedding receptions, I believe, May and June, so hurry, hurry, hurry.
The mothers of several brides-to-be in June, thank you, and I thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Number 15, consideration rewarding RFQ WU 1413 to Allen Plummer Associates Incorporated to evaluate reclaimed water alternatives, including non-potable and potable reuse alternatives, in the amount not to exceed $189,965. Kevin Kruger.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. This morning, I'm pleased to bring for your consideration the awarding of a study to look at our reclaimed wastewater. And what we would like to do in accomplishing in this study is to obtain a list of potential projects and their cost. We're going to look at both non-potable and potable use of the water. We want to make sure that we look at all the alternatives that are available out there. And another deliverable that we'll receive from this will be the benefits that each potential project that's identified, the benefits that will be provided for each of those projects. We're also going to make sure that we look at the legal and regulatory requirements, that will be required if we choose to go down this road. But most importantly, I want to make sure that council understands, I think one of the main reasons that we're looking for this study is to make sure that council has information that you need to evaluate all the alternatives that are available for the city for our short and long-term water needs. And I think this information will help the council and city staff to make recommendations, better informed recommendations. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Rodney?
Well, we went and visited Big Springs last week on the reclaimed water plant up there, and I was thoroughly impressed. In my opinion, this is the future of how every city in the state of Texas is going to be going in the next 20 years. Wichita Falls just opened their new plant last week on May the 1st, and now I guess there's 2 plants in the state of Texas that are using that reclaimed water for their drinking water, and that's Big Springs and now Wichita Falls. I think this is a very, very good move that we're taking. We're moving forward quickly on this, and we're checking everything out to make sure that it is the best thing for us. The question I had, and Charlotte brought this to my attention earlier, and I would just like it to be brought out into the public. We're under contract to release our water, our sewage water downstream. Can you explain those contracts? I know one of them we can get out of, and if we give them 12 months notice. Is there another contract that's involved also?
The only contract I'm aware of is a contract with the irrigation district, and we do not release any water downstream. The city is not authorized or permitted by the state to release water. All of our water is used for reuse. It's used for irrigation.
Right.
And the agreement with the irrigation district does have a 1-year provision of notification to the district.
Okay. And so if we give them 1 year's notice, then we can use all that water. If that's one of the projects that rises to the top and we decide that we want to move forward on,
correct.
We can. Okay. Charlotte?
Okay. Yes, I discussed this with Roddy because I'm trying to find out information because there are 2 contracts. And so I, this morning, have pulled up the San Angelo project history with reference to our Tom Green County Irrigation District. And that is who we have a contract with that you're saying that we can get out of with 1 year's notification. But what about the contract that we have with the Corps of Engineers? That's 2 contracts on this water, and the Corps of Engineers contract with reference to the water supply, I understand is a 50-year contract and was just renewed 2 years ago. And I'm looking at the reclamation completed portion. I didn't know if it was 1,200 acre feet, 20,000 acre feet, and I'm reading in this history that it's 12,000 irrigating for 12,000 acres of land. Well, that's a different story. Okay, how much water does it take to irrigate 12,000 acres of land? That's the other contract that my understanding is that that water in perpetuity has been sold, and we don't. I want to make sure we have enough over what we've sold to make a brown water plant or gray water plant worth the money that it would take to build it. And of course, some would say just to have water is worth any money, but if it's not feasible, before I approve $190,000 expenditure, I really would like for us, our attorneys, to review these 2 contracts to see what amount of water we're really talking about.
Okay, I can address the fact that the wastewater totally belongs to the city. It's under our control. We do have the agreement with the district, but there's not an agreement with the Corps of Engineers regarding our wastewater. That is regarding the irrigation water rights that the district has with the Twin Buttes, and also the water rights that the city has with Twin Buttes. But most importantly, I'd like to point out that as a part of this study, the contracts, all of the contracts that the city has, they will be reviewed, and those issues will be brought out. And that's part of the legal and regulatory issues that I talked about. That is certainly something that we will address in this study.
But we're paying $190,000 to have somebody else address what's written in the history in the archives, and I'm playing Mr. Morrison here. I've got a problem with that.
Well,
I mean,
it's a part of the study, but it is not a major part of the study. I mean, whether there's 1 or 2 contracts, I mean, those can be reviewed in relatively short order and incorporated into the study is just if there are potential issues that we need to resolve to go forward with these projects, that will be one of the issues that is looked at and made a part of the study and part of the recommendation.
Kevin, the farmers did have rights to the water in the Twin Buttes, the North and the South Pool, and we traded our wastewater down the canal for their rights there, and maybe that's a simplistic way to put it. The way I understood it, we made a trade with the farmers for the Twin Buttes, and the Twin Pools. We use those now. We traded our wastewater.
That is basically
So if we
correct.
take our wastewater back that's in the canal, then they get their rights back to the North and South Pool.
And it's important to point out that the agreement that the city made with the district, they never relinquished their right. It was an agreement that we made with the district, and and basically asked them, when the conditions are right where they could pull water from Twin Buttes, we asked that they not pull that water and instead use the treated wastewater that we would provide for them. And what that does is that allows water to remain in Twin Buttes for us to use as drinking water.
Conditions haven't been right, is that correct?
Correct.
We've had an issue for quite a long while now as far as the levels required before waters are sent downstream.
Yes.
Okay.
And now they have our water in the canal and we have a dry hole.
Right. That's right.
I think it's time to change it.
Well, I don't have the contract, but looking at this overview, they referred to that if we change that, then whoever wants to change it has to reimburse for the expense of the canal to
Correct. There were improvements that were made in 1998. The irrigation district made improvements and the city made improvements in order to deliver water to the district. And the district was required to build improvements per the TCEQ. So there is a provision in that contract that I believe expires in 2017. We're coming close to the end of that. But there is a provision in there. If we were to opt out before that date, there is a payback, and it's spelled out in the contract. And again, that would be a part of, if we looked at proceeding with the project on, very fast pace, then that would be figured into the cost of that project at the buyout provision that's in the contract.
And Ricky covered that when he briefed us on it a couple of meetings ago, because I remember the 2017 date. Johnny?
Kevin,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just trying to wrap my hands around this.
You next.
The fee schedule has a total of, the bottom line is like Charlotte mentioned, 189,000. If it's a proposed reuse study, I mean, how are we coming up with 71 hours and 51 hours and 602 hours? How do we already know that ahead of time?
This is the Alan Plummer's estimate of the amount of work that's going to be required to complete each of these tasks. What I'm asking for is authorization and amount not to exceed $189,965. So we will actually be charged the actual cost, the actual hours that the consultant.
So it could be less than this.
Yes.
And then on the other hand is when I'm looking at the contract, if it is indeed the contract, it reads 146,000. So why does we read 146 and then this one a potential 189?
That's not correct on the contract then. It should read 189.
It says 146.
Okay.
I'm looking at it. So
Don, did you have a question, sir?
Yes. What was the 2006 study?
The 2006 study was also a study to look at different alternatives available for wastewater reuse. And that study did look at potable reuse. And one of the things I'd like to point out about that is that wastewater reuse is an emerging field. There are advancements being made in technology on a very fast basis. So basically in 2006, this was something that was being talked about. There was not a lot of research and hard lab information available about what we were facing. There was a lot of questions brought up at that time about pharmaceuticals, which continue to be an issue. But we know how to deal with those through the technology that's been developed. So this study, we propose to build upon what was done in 2006. A lot of the ideas that are in there are good ideas. There's a lot of good basic information in there, and that actually, believe it or not, helped us in our negotiations with the consultant in order to come down to this price.
I just, I have a real problem with consultants anyway, and I really have a problem with $190,000 worth of consultant to basically rehash what we know we need to do. I mean, after touring Big Springs, I mean, that's what we need to do. I'm not for maybe some parts of these items that staff cannot do. But, you know, I think our legal staff can review the contracts. I think that, you know, we have a good staff with you and Ricky, and I'm not for spending $190,000 for this.
I can tell you that their first proposal was substantially higher than this, and we have gone through numerous iterations with them and looking at how we could change the task, and we have trimmed it down a lot. We got to the point to where we believe that if we were to trim more from this task, that it would really impair the amount of information that we're going to get back from the consultants. I understand your concerns. $190,000 is a lot of money. This process is a very highly technical process, and Big Spring is one option that's available, but there are other treatment options that are available. There are other technologies that we really do need to look at. The Big Spring plant has a lot of benefits, but each project has benefits and it has drawbacks, and that's what I really want to make sure we understand, that we take a good broad look at what all is available out there.
Johnny, did you find what you were looking for, sir?
I believe I've got a little bit clearer understanding. It does read the basic engineering fees is up to, it's $146,000 on page 1, and then any additional is where probably it could creep up. Maybe it could possibly creep up to the 189, but not over the $189 amount.
Okay.
And I'm kind of leaning towards the comments that Don is making. I'm finding it a little hard to swallow. $189,000. It is. What is the balance in that wastewater budget now?
Well,
Don, were you through?
Mm-hmm.
Were you through?
I would like, and maybe as others are looking at the balance, I'd like to point out that wastewater reuse is probably one of the most expensive water sources that is currently available. It is a very intense operation, as you can imagine. The state of Texas they require us to treat that water to very high standards. If you take a look at the projects that have gone on in Texas and the projects that are occurring right now, the city of Abilene, you're going to notice that you're talking a large amount of money. I believe Abilene is, I don't want to quote any numbers, but I know they're 60 to 70 or maybe $80 million plus, somewhere in that range. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money when you start talking about treating a relatively large volume of water, 6 or 7 million gallons a day. So I just want council to understand that, yes, $189,000 is a lot of money, but if we choose to go down this road, we need to realize that this water is expensive water to develop. Now, we're getting to the point where, there's not a whole lot of water sources out there.
Mm-hmm.
And all water is becoming more and more expensive to develop, certainly. So I do want you to understand that this will be a process that will require.
And Kevin, let me just finish by asking. First of all, let me apologize for not being able to make the trip to Big Spring. I would have loved to have gone, but I couldn't. But is this $190,000 just a seed money to give us ideas on what we can move forward?
Yes.
With on the,
Yes,
do we
this
not
is-
have the experts on staff that?
Well, it's such a technical field. I mean, it's not, even the state of Texas, if you were to go down this path, the rules and regulations that are written are not just standard. If you were to design a normal wastewater treatment plant, you could go out there and the rules and regulations are to tell you how to size the basins. And this is not that way. You're required to put in pilot plants. They're required to run, up to 6 months to prove that what you're going to do will work. So it's not a normal engineering type process where the rules and regulations have been spelled out to a great extent. Just the Big Spring plant was the first one in Texas. They were the first ones to get this through the TCQ, and So that takes a lot of work to do that groundbreaking type work.
And how much water are they bringing in?
They're treating 2 million gallons per day is what their plant is designed for.
I do want to point out as well that the study itself will also determine not just for potable use, but also non-potable use. There may be a combination that may save the city money, that we don't need to use all of it for potable purposes. We could be using for some of it for non-potable purposes, for irrigation. And there's got to be some type of a combination that works best from a cost-effective standpoint that we definitely want to make sure we take a look at as well. So it's not just strictly just to study the potable use, but also perhaps the non-potable use as well.
Yes.
Mr. Fleming.
A couple questions for you. One, do we know who Abilene and who Wichita Falls use as consultants?
I know that Abilene is using Allen Plummer.
They are.
And I'm not sure who Wichita Falls is using.
I'd almost like to find that out before I vote on this, because Wichita Falls just opened last week, and so I would think those consultants would be the most up to date on the process.
We went through the process. We put out a request for qualifications.
Okay.
And we had 5 firms that replied, and none of those 5 were the consultants that were doing the Wichita Falls project. We went through and evaluated those 5 and selected Allen Plumbers and brought that to the council back in February. And so we have gone through that process of asking consultants to submit their qualifications to us. Mm-hmm. The Abilene project is on a very fast track. They're doing, I believe, what's called a design build. They're designing it as they go, and their goal is to have something in place by the end of this year.
Right.
And I think we can really benefit from the work that Allen Plummer is doing on that project. It'll provide them with insight. They're going through the process of working with the state, going through the process of designing facilities, and so that will really help us in this.
Do we have to do a pilot program if we use one of the programs that's already been used? There's two
currently with
two
the state
plants
of
in
Texas.
use.
Yes.
Marty?
I just want to say I hate studies as bad as the next guy, but I think we need to figure out, I think we need to move forward, figure out which way it's going to be the best way to reuse our water, and I think if we hold off, we're only going to be hurting ourselves and shooting ourselves in the foot. I think we move forward.
TCEQ is never going to approve this without this consultant.
Correct.
I mean, it's without a consultant.
Correct.
Yes. So without a consultant, we're never going to get off of high center anyway.
This is just the first step that
it's got to be done.
goes through.
And I hate it too. I hate to spend all this money with lawyers and consultants, but it's never going to be approved if we don't do this. It's just part of the process.
I think you have me convinced, because even on, the negative feedback we got on even starting the new water treatment plant, it was because of all the studies and all the pilot programs that had to be done. So I feel that if we don't start this one today, I'm with you guys, we'll be way behind anyway. So.
Charlotte?
Well, in reading more information, the first irrigation waters did not pump through the lines till 1972, and it took an act of Congress. They had to amend legislation to amend for this irrigation use out of Lake Twin Buttes. Messing with this contract, again, is going to take an act of Congress to amend again the irrigation canal, the amount of waters that flow, and that's controlled by a board. I'm just asking that we do a little more research before we approve $190,000 without doing our own homework to see what all is involved, because I do believe there are 2 contracts out there that control, and it has to do with 2 different entities, the Corps of Engineers and the Tom Green County Water Irrigation Board.
There are 2 contracts, but the Corps of Engineer contract does not deal with wastewater. It only deals with
Twin Buttes.
with the Twin Buttes water rights that the city has and the irrigation district have. And when there's only one contract that deals with the wastewater, and that's with the irrigation district.
And you understand that if, we can be asked by the Corps of Engineers to replace what was spent on those canals, and there's 19 miles of concrete lined canals.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, sir.
2 weeks, gentlemen, and Charlotte, if we take a look at this, I'm aware of that one contract as far as the one that we do have with the irrigation district. As far as the other one that you're talking about in reference, I knew that we had the one with Twin Buttes. But just for clarification purposes, if y'all don't have an issue with it, I think it would behoove us to make sure that we take a look at that and make sure that we're clear on that, and then come back at the next city council meeting on this item. That's all. I think that there's definitely no reason why to rush into this immediately until we know for a fact that that's the case. If that's and I'm going to sit here and tell you that I don't know every single detail of that second contract you're talking about, but I definitely would like to have an opportunity to take a look at that and have legal take a look at that and make sure we come back.
The actual contract. So.
Yeah. I would feel much more comfortable doing it that way and then come back next city council meeting, which will be 2 weeks from now anyway.
Well, and along with that, here again, I just think $190,000 is a lot of money. We have staff that I think can address some of these things to get that down. I'm not saying that we don't need a consultant, and I'm not saying that we don't need to pursue this 100% because I think we do. But I'm just saying I think $190,000 when we're already have cities in Texas that are doing this as we speak is a little bit excessive.
Charlotte?
It's a lot excessive.
Mr. Dane, since this is having to do with water that flows into Nasworthy and flows on down, in irrigation, is it any way possible that this fee, whatever it determines to be, can be paid from the Lake Nasworthy Trust funds?
On its face, it does not appear that way. It does have to do with future water supply, though, so that suggests to me that we should certainly look at the half-cent sales tax source dedicated to future water supply. And it also has to do with treatment of wastewater, so there might be three funding sources: water capital money, which is short at this point, wastewater capital money, and then the half-cent sales tax money dedicated to future water supply. So I think we have some funding options there. Certainly, this type of thing was maybe not specifically anticipated, but the need to investigate future water supplies was one of the things that certainly that was considered when the previous administrations put together that ballot language.
As far as funding sources go, can we also tap the state's water funds that were just approved, the $2-point-something billion?
Generally, I think they are going to be using that money for the execution of projects. At this point, we're studying the possibility of projects.
And also, you have to realize, too, that those monies won't be available until the latter part of 2015 anyway. So we're looking at monies that aren't readily accessible, and then we'd actually have to qualify for that as well. So there's going to be a lot of people competing for that, but there would be a delay to get those types of funds.
Okay. And I think this step is something that, as we cite anecdotally other cities which have been through or are building plants, this is something they all did. This initial process to determine the best treatment method for the wastewater stream that they were dealing with, I think was studied in advance of the actual design of the plant that they built. So, isn't that true, Kevin?
Yes. Marty?
Yeah, if I understood Ms. Farmer right, the contract with the Corps of Engineers also has to do with those canals, possibly?
Yes.
I'd like to know from what the use, if those can be used for anything besides just regular water, according to that contract, when we bring it back in 2 weeks.
Silvas?
Kevin, and again, the financial impact, is this budgeted Is this a budgeted item? Did we foresee that we were going to look into this type of use? Probably not.
We've been thinking all along that we would try to pay for this from that half-cent sales tax money. So we're anticipating a request from Water to fund this project, and we will talk with them about what they would suggest we do. But certainly our suggestion to them would be that we look at that half-cent sales tax money and then begin that discussion with COSA DC also.
We also do have wastewater capital improvement monies allocated set aside.
That's true.
But we have those two options as well.
Did you ever find a balance on that?
On
that wastewater?
Wastewater capital improvement money? Is that the question?
Right. Is there a number in there, a balance in there, or in the blue book? Or
the number is a good question. But I anticipated the question on the COSA DC side. That's where I thought you were going. And so that unreserved fund balance as of March 31 on the COSA DC side is approximately $2.6 million. And so we believe there is money available on that side. We want to confirm the legality of its use. And of course, we want to go through the process with that board to make sure they're comfortable and understanding of what the use of the money is. And so we would, if that's the way we ultimately go, Mr. Sills, we anticipate a process similar to what we have used and are using with the West Texas Water Partnership invoices. Recall that those are initially paid by the city, but the city is reimbursed by COSA DC from that dedicated funding source. So we're looking at a similar process if we are able to throw all those switches and make that funding source available.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Do you need a motion to postpone
You know, I would
this?
just, if it's been suggested we postpone this for one meeting, will a consensus do? Or do you want a motion?
A motion, please.
A motion. Somebody make a motion, we postpone this for one meeting.
I move that we postpone this to time definite next meeting.
I second that, but I want to clarify something that Marty had said about water, and it says reservoir water and tailwater, but I have no idea what tailwater means.
I just would like to primarily know if those can be
But I
used to
second
lay
his
the
motion.
water line in.
Mr. Webb, did you want to speak to this, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. My name's Wiley Webb, and Mayor and members of the council. I wanted to be here today when I saw this item on the agenda. I don't know, I'm not going to speak in favor of or approving or not approving the contract. I don't need a contract to tell me that San Angelo needs to build a plant and reclaim our wastewater. That's the regret that I have from when I was up there. We were successful, and we had a big problem with our water back in 68 through 72. We were able to acquire the water rights under the Hickory. Johnny Williams was our water superintendent at that time. One of the things that he was in favor of very much was reclaiming our wastewater. He actually had constructed a small pilot plant over at the water facility, and he was retreating and reclaiming very small amounts of wastewater at that time. The San Angelo Junior League had appointed a committee chaired by Jane Gillis and Nina Ransom to gather information on retreating wastewater. Jane Gillis still lives here in San Angelo, and I know she's still in favor of it, although probably a lot of our citizens aren't. But we got a good rain back then, got lots of runoff, had the Hickory, and we thought we were in good shape, and we dropped. Going back and looking at reclaiming our wastewater, and I guess I would just say to you, don't you guys leave here and look back and wish you'd taken some additional action. One other thing on this study, you know, the Hickory does not recharge very quickly. And if we did end up reclaiming our wastewater, and after we've used that hickory, we started taking water now, after a year or so, if we've had to draw that thing down, as I said, it does not recharge quickly. You're probably aware of that. I would like to know if there's any merit to, if we could reverse the flow in this pipeline that we now have to the hickory, and we had excess water because we can reclaim the water, could we pump that water back and recharge that thing a little faster? I don't know if somebody can study that, if these guys could study that, whether that has any merit, whether the cost is, whether it's even a good idea. It did occur to me, and I thought I'd like to pass that on. Thanks, Mayor, for letting me.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate you, sir. Come on, Jim.
Yes, my name is Jim Turner, and again, I have to agree with the idea that we do need to use our wastewater. At the same time, though, this needs to be part of an overall approach and strategy and kind of a new mindset that we don't use water just once and then flush it away. There are a lot of opportunities for multiple use. Sometimes you can have, like the car washers are doing, where they're using the same water over and over again for various parts of washing the vehicles. At the same time, there are things that can be done at the residential level and the neighborhood level to use gray water, that water that is out of washing the clothes, taking a shower. It's not really highly polluted. It's not dangerous. In an emergency, you could actually probably drink it straight out of the bathtub. But encourage the local reuse and multiple uses of water. We need to get away from the whole attitude of use it once and flush it away. Use it once and throw it away down the drain for somebody else to cause. Even with reclaiming the wastewater, that's as has already been stated, that's an extremely expensive process, partly because you're separating out a lot of the unwanted products out of the black water that you're not going to get into gray water. You're washing your that type of water. And as much as we can keep that water circulating and being used before we take and put it into the sewer system, the better off we're going to be. And we could probably cut our water use by a very measurable and significant amount just by using your laundry water to water your pecan tree. Thank you.
Anyone else care to talk about this before we take a vote? Council, any further comment? Motion's been made. We put this off for one meeting, get a little more information, bring it back for consideration next time. Okay, Kevin? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Put a 6-0 on it, please. Let's move on to item number 16. Discussion, possible action on conducting a sales tax election in November 14 pertaining to municipal sales and use tax for street maintenance tax related matters. Brother Vardaman, that's yours, sir.
Yes, sir. I met with Mr. Dane as late as yesterday, and we were looking at some of the figures and what we can and can't do. I believe that if this were to be approved by the voters with proper education, where they would understand that it's a 4-year deal, so to speak, unless they decided to keep going with it, it would make it so that we can address some of the big problems that we have with our streets. Without doing this, I'm not sure how we're ever going to get caught back up on our streets and what we need to do with those things to get them back in the shape they need to be. I'm not even sure that this is anything that will get us where we actually need to be, but it will help get us down the line. We were looking at around $5 million with this that we can address our streets with. Along with that, I would also like to propose that right now we have $1.7 million dedicated out of our budget. with the 8th cent on our sales tax, we can also take $100,000 for our cemetery, $100,000 for our fort maintenance, and $100,000 for general building maintenance for those 4 years to get those also up and in good shape and running. It would be taking those monies away from our streets just a little bit, but I think it would be money well spent.
Well, I certainly am in favor of this. I always have been, and I compliment Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan's the one that carried the ball on this and been carrying it for 3 or 4 years trying to get this through, and I appreciate you taking it up, Don. Do I have any further comment from council on it?
How would it affect economic development?
Well, currently, that half-cent sales tax generates approximately $8 million per year. So the amount of money we're talking about is $2 million. One of the things we've heard in discussions is, can this be done on the ballot side? Will it affect economic development? I guess we've heard that question before, so we've started working on that. If we generate approximately, looking at a full year, the next year or so, approximately $8.6 million, that would make this 1/8 of a cent, which would be 1/4 of a half, approximately $2.15 million. As we look at a projected budget for the ballot side of Cosa DC, remember Cosa DC is split into 2 parcels. One parcel being economic development, and the other side, the larger side, being ballot projects. That's where we've done parks. It's where we have $1.5 million a year coming over to help with debt service on the Hickory project. That larger side is approximately 72%. It looks like, based on these projections, that we could cover approximately 1.4 to 1.5 million of that $2.1 million amount out of the ballot side. And what that means is, if we kind of sharpen our pencil and tighten things up, wrap up some loose ends on the ballot side, we could get that kind of money. That would leave approximately, depending on how the actual sales tax revenue moves, $650,000 to $800,000, which would need to come from the economic development side. So the question is, what kind of impact does that have? As you look at the economic development side, after you pay for operating expenses and memberships, assuming no major change in the way they operate, that there is approximately $1.5 to $1.6 million available for economic development, or future projects is kind of how we loosely call it. So out of $1.6 million, you would likely have to give up approximately $650,000 to $800,000. So I'm sorry, that was a very long answer. So the question again, what's the impact to economic development? Roughly $650,000 to $800,000 reduction of a budget which is anticipated to be about $1.6 million.
Almost half.
Yes, sir.
But that's also the future projects portion of it. The total project expenditures are for 13-14 2.374, and for 14-15 2.5. So you're talking about a portion of the future projects, not cutting back on what's being addressed at this time.
That's absolutely right. That's when you talk about what does it take to run the corporation, the employees who operate Cosa DC are actually city employees, and Cosa DC reimburses the city for those expenses. That's a big part of that. That's approximately $250,000. There is approximately, Roland, help me out, 80 or 90,000 in additional city support that Cosa DC reimburses for. Is that what's in that new contract? Do you remember? City services contract. And so, for example, they reimburse us for time that I spend on an estimate of the time I spend working on Cosa DC issues, and an estimate of the time Daniel spends on Cosa DC issues, and a portion of the time that council spends. So That's a big part of that. Additionally, there are contracts. For example, the contract with the chamber to promote San Angelo, that is one of the expenditures. Assuming all those, these projections assume all that stays the same. We didn't want to build in a bunch of changes. We're saying that if you assume that that corporation continues to operate the way they are now, this will be the impact. But Councilman Vardaman's right. If other changes could be made, and actually those other changes can be made whether or not we go into or vote in a street maintenance tax.
Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. I'm not in favor of messing with the half-cent sales tax. The voters have approved and it's set and committed, and I'm not in favor. I am in favor of finding monies to work on our streets immediately because the pay-as-you-go is not working. So I want to ask you, of the 8 cents, we're at the maximum that we're allowed to charge, that 8 cents. Why does it have to be taken from the half-cent sales tax? Why can't we commit a half-cent from the remaining 7.5 cents to go strictly to streets repair,
Good
maintenance? I don't want to mess with something that's working, but why can't we take a half-cent or a quarter of or whatever works out of that remaining amount?
Well, let's talk about that. The total rate right now is 8 1/4 cents. That is made up of 6 1/4, which is the state's portion. Half-cent is the county's portion. 1 cent goes to the city's general fund, and a half-cent goes to Cosa DC. So of that 8 1/4, the amount we control is roughly 1.5 cents, or maybe exactly 1.5 cents. Half-cent to Cosa DC and 1 cent to the city. That other 1 cent that the city has control over is going into the general fund now and is a general tax revenue from which current street operations are funded, along with all other general fund activity. So we already have that other amount dedicated to general fund activity, whether we call it money for public safety or for administration or for streets. It's already in that general fund.
But you were talking about we would have to tighten our budget with what little remaining of the Cosa DC. We're still going to have to tighten our budget whether we take it out of the general. It's the same cutback.
Well, yes. Well, not necessarily. It's a different set of cuts. For example, there are memberships. I'll use that. Cosa DC pays for memberships in organizations trying to promote and draw commercial activity, economic activity to either our specific location or at least our region. We have debated in the past whether or not those, and Roland has raised the issue, are those memberships getting us what we want? Those memberships could be cut, or we could join more associations. If that's a different kind of a cut than if you go into the general fund and say, we're gonna convert our parks to gravel and not gonna have water anymore. There are different kinds of cuts that are possible, but we should look at them all. And I think that Ms. Farmer raises a point here that I think I need to point out, and that is, and Councilman Vardaman touched on it earlier also, and that is this is not going to solve all our streets problems. We're going to need to bring multiple weapons to the front in order to conquer this problem. And this would just simply be one tool in the toolbox to try to get us where we need to be on streets.
And haven't we already devoted out of that 1 cent for the city capital improvement funds into a road fund? We've been doing it for the last couple of years. I'm trying to say 1.2 million per year.
You're right. There's 1.75 million in pay-as-you-go capital money. It's not obligated to be spent on roads. It's available for whatever council thinks is a priority. For example, this year, part of it went to the cemetery, and
but most of it has gone to roads as far as under our capital improvement plan for the last several years.
Well, it's been a mix, and I'm sorry I can't call that off the top of my head, but for example, the 19th Street sidewalk project I think we're anticipating to use that money to fund that project. So, again, I think we're going to need this and more, or something in substitute of this, if we're going to successfully address streets.
Well, we're already putting money into a road system out of our general fund. We're already putting some in it. We just need more.
1.7 is what we're putting this year, but here again, every day that goes by, it's almost like our water. It's going to be more and more and getting worse and worse. And I'm not sure this is the pill that cures everything, but I think at least it gives us a start. And as far as economic development, if we don't have the roads to go down to get to wherever we need to go, and this 8 cent, I don't think would hurt our economic development one bit, because basically we're taking a portion of some of the future project monies, which should, everything going with our sales tax, will jump by 2017-2018 projections, $540,000 additional anyway.
I had 2 questions.
Go ahead.
The other question I had, with reference to where do we find the additional funds, since we're already committing the 1.7 from the general fund, is it possible that during this excess time we're having, spending with tax monies coming in, that we could attach a portion of the hot funds to also go in with that 1.7, and that doesn't mess with the half-cent sales tax monies? I don't know right offhand the separation and the divvy up of where the hot funds go, but I do know that we had talked a few meetings ago that we anticipated having an overage, and we did not want to spend that. We wanted to put it back during leaner times, but it just seems to me that a good place for it would be to add to the 1.7 million.
I don't see where
hot tax will not work for that. There's criteria that has to be met. One of them is direct tourism and
well, if we don't have good roads or streets, who wants to come here?
Well, let me point this out as well. I know that we have $1.7 million set aside. That's nowhere close to what we need. We need a lot more money than that. I know that the city, as far as you mentioned a while ago, Ms. Farmer, is that we had to find areas also, as far as cutting back and finding where we can free up some of those monies. Yes, we can project more revenues because thankfully we have been doing better on our revenues. And those excess revenues should be perhaps allocated for those infrastructure improvements. But on our end, as far as the city, we are looking for cutbacks and making sure that we can reduce those expenditures, become more efficient so that we can free up some of those monies and make up, add a heck of a lot more to $1.7 million, because that's not going to cut it. We need quite a bit of money at this point, and my projection is between $9 and $11 million per year until we get to the point that we do a 7-year, after a 7-year process, and we go into a maintenance process, and at that point, we're looking at $3 to $3.5 million per year. But right now, we've gotten ourselves into a little bit of a pickle where we have to address all this reconstruction within the next 7 years, and then go into a cycle that allows us to do the maintenance. But it's going to be a culmination of efforts. It's not just going to be one area that we can focus in on, like sales tax. We have to look at the whole city and say, okay, where can we free up those monies? And we're definitely in the process of doing that right now.
But along with that, with 1/8 of a cent, it would give us a shot in the arm. It would give us a starting point and something that we could put in the bank, so to speak, for 4 years, to where we can wrangle with the other things that are needed as far as what Daniel's talking about on trying to come up with budgetary means to address the problem.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
When do we have to vote?
It has to be put on the ballot by August.
Okay.
Alicia?
So we still have some time?
We got some time on
We
it.
have some, excuse me, we have some time, but the ordinance or call for the order of the election has to be done before August 18th. So, we need to consider the education of the citizens, the ballot language and such. So there's a lot of.
Can we have staff bring us back possible funding options for streets?
Absolutely.
And just for discussion, where I came up with the $5 million is Michael and I were just sitting there throwing figures out hypothetically, of course, but, you know, we can take some funds perhaps from stormwater and some of the other things to try to get up to the 5 million mark along with the 8 cents on our sales tax.
I get real nervous when you and Dane talk hypothetically.
Johnny?
Mayor, having been on the campaign trail for the last month and a half, seems like a year and a half, and Rodney can attest to this, if there's one thing more passionate that citizens are looking into than, you know, water, of course, it's streets. So we've got to start something. We got to plant an idea and water it and just move forward with it, because I hate to wait till even November. I wish we were in November already, because you know, and I say this many times, that the condition of the streets that are in, you know, the streets are in today didn't happen overnight. This happened years and years back. So I think it's, you know, it's in our it's at our table right now for us to move forward with it. If it's half-cent sales tax money, I like it's something, you know, it's something to move forward with. So I like that. I was kind of leaning towards the hot funds, but if that doesn't work, you know, I think of hot funds because when folks come in to visit our Texas Sports Complex, I mean, that's what's driving them in there, is that facility, and then having to drive over that, it's just, you know, you've heard it time and time again, Bell Street is the worst. One thing that I wanted to add, and I think Roland and I touched base on it a while back, is in visiting my folks in the Plano, Texas, they have some kind of, and I want to ask what kind of funding they use for their streets are awesome. I mean, they reconstruct streets every year, so I don't know what they're doing. And I don't know, the citizens need to realize also that if we are struggling with ways to fund the streets, they need to step up to the plate. And I don't know if it takes a user type fee for it for us to get started. I don't know, but I do know that we as a council need to move forward with the idea. So
Plano uses a venue fee.
Is it a venue fee?
It's a venue fee, and I've long advocated a venue fee. I know Chamber would probably scream at me bringing business and stuff in, but especially off of our hotel occupancy, you know, an attached venue fee to go directly toward street maintenance.
And they're struggling with water just like we are, and my in-laws had their street redone and sidewalk, and they even planted grass for them where they tore up the street. So, man, it's a beautiful thing that they did. So I wish we could do something like that, and we need to move forward with it, because
and this isn't by any means, like Daniel was saying, going to be the silver bullet that's going to cure our street problem. But like I said, us sitting back on our hands and not doing anything is causing it to get worse and worse. Right. And I just feel like our citizens need to understand and know that we are trying. This is a way that they can help. It won't really raise their taxes per se. It's just more or less shifting funds within an area that they can actually vote on and have some say on.
Do I have further comment from council? I think what we're hearing is put something together, bring it back to us so that we got something to vote on, and we can either vote to put it on the November election or vote not to put it on the November election. Yep. But we need something that we can put on the ballot so the people can decide if we change this or not.
And
yes,
could
ma'am.
you include a venue fee in?
Yes, I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to look at possible funding sources before we vote?
That's
yes.
what we're voting
Yes.
to do, is for them to bring back possible funding
Correct.
sources.
What I'm hearing is bring back a funding solution to accumulate monies on an annual basis to throw at streets, try to solve that problem. One of the criteria I'm also hearing is minimize or eliminate the impact to the economic development side of the half-cent sales taxes. Are we clear? Is that what I'm hearing? And as
well, I know Don is saying he wants an 8 cent from the half-cent sales tax devoted to streets. Is that what you're saying, Don?
Yes, and it would have to be done for 4 years. We couldn't do it any more than that without another vote. But, you know, what I was talking to Michael about, you know, as small an amount as we possibly can get from, you know, economic development, the better off we'll be. But with additional sales and the projections, I think I think it would basically be unaffected for the 4 years that we'll have that on the books.
I'd like to have that on the ballot, and if you can bring any other solutions back to us, it's something we can consider, but.
Okay, it's a little bit of a side note, Mayor, but one of the things I've already heard from a couple of council members, Councilman Fleming and Councilman Silvis, both said something, I'm paraphrasing, they said, we've seen some debt-oriented alternatives for streets that they'd like to look at an alternative that doesn't include debt, and so we're working on something along those lines too.
Very much so.
And I think an analysis of the venue fee you'll bring back.
Well,
Yeah.
I already have an idea for the venue fee. I don't know that we can put it toward streets, but we can probably put it toward something that we maybe, like a park or a facility where we could be using Costa DC money to supplement maintenance, and that might free up Costa DC money to be used here.
Well, one of the things also, and Daniel and the mayor and I have talked on several occasions about is putting a street and bridge crew that's city employees in. Of course, that's going to be really tough. We can't fill the positions that we have now, much less, putting something else. But perhaps we could at least get some of the equipment, some of those sort of things started within this 4-year time frame, to where it would be less expense per se per mile, in the future with our own crew versus, having so much of it contracted out.
And that would be something that I would work out with Shane, of course, to make sure, for sure, we wouldn't get into the reconstruction business. That's way too much work, and I don't, just keeping the type of talent necessary to do that, we just won't be able to do that. But to talk about seal coat overlays, perhaps, asphalt overlays, those would probably maybe something that we could probably do in-house. Potholes, definitely.
Patching.
Yeah, so there's certain parts, let's say, when you go into a plan anyway, especially now, if we do develop a 7-year plan, we're looking at 2 different facets. We're looking part of the streets that'll have to be reconstructed, and others that would have to be maintained to make sure they don't get to the point where they're going to crumble on us, and then it's going to cost us a lot more money. So it's perhaps a crew that's dedicated to that maintenance portion of it is doable. But as far as hiring a crew that can do all of it, it's highly unlikely. So
I'm going to throw out another dirty word here. It's partnerships. And the county already has some street equipment, and they have crews. We need to start working some partnerships with the county, so that when they're not using it in the county, we could use that equipment in the city.
Yes.
And we can work, and I've been trying to get a meeting since last June to get the city and the school and the county together and talk about ways that we could partner and cut down on expenses that it's our same customers. So we've already got the equipment in the county. We've already got the men. All we need to do is just partner with them so that we can work together.
But you've got to get them to talk to you first.
Well, we need to.
Mayor,
and partnership's a dirty word. I know it. Yes,
Mayor,
sir.
Speaking of equipment, when we did have, and I know you've been on council since the county was established, but when we did
it was
have,
still part of Bayer when I joined.
When we did have the equipment and the manpower, were we better off? I mean, with the streets? I mean, I know you don't go back that far, but.
Well, I go back that far because I worked here. Every 7 years, there was maintenance on the streets. They divided it up into sevenths. And so many miles of streets were done every year. And so the maintenance was a whole lot better than nothing. And so consequently, we had less deterioration because of the seal coating that Shane has talked to us about before, as far as working with the streets to keep them from getting so bad. And that's where our crew came in. Yeah. As a budgetary money-saving project, they did away with that crew and combined some other crews together with to make one entity, and sold all the equipment off.
I would tell you that my previous city in Eagle Pass, we actually had a crew that did, 2 crews actually did a lot of that work. I know it saved us quite a bit of money, and the one thing we didn't venture into was, as I mentioned a while ago, was the reconstruction phase of it. But the maintenance part, this crew did an excellent job.
And that street and bridge, that prior street and bridge crew didn't do anything but maintenance also.
So bottom line, I want to make sure that the citizens know that, hey, we do. I mean, when they gripe to us about the condition in the streets. They're griping to the choir, so to speak, because we know. But it's just up to us to let them know that we're moving forward with the idea. We got to start something somewhere, because it's been.
I don't think they're griping, they're just expressing a concern.
Yes.
Well, maybe griping was too.
I go down Bell Street to get here, and I go down 29th Street to get to Walmart, and I feel their pain.
Tried going down Sunset and Southwest?
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten pulled over going down Bell Street? No?
No.
Okay. Weaving and, no.
Public comment. Come on, Jim.
Yes, my name is still Jim Turner, and my partner in crime on this issue has been mentioned numerous times during the discussion, Jim Ryan, and he does deserve a lot of credit. I think we both do, because we actually did a lot of the research on the different alternatives to different taxes, including this half-cent sales tax that we have now, the limits, what it can be used for, and so on. Anything else, this condition of the roads right now are having an impact on the economic health of the city. So a street maintenance sales tax, whether you like it or not, in reality is an economic development sales tax, because if the people can't get to their businesses on the streets, they can't have the vehicles of the size they need, they're not going to come to San Angelo, no matter how big a bribe we try to do with an economic development incentive. And the other thing is, this sales tax, if the economy is healthy and the roads are enough to bring in the traffic, it's going to grow enough to where you're still going to have plenty of funds for doing special economic development incentive projects. We've looked, since we first brought this up, the sales tax has grown almost 75% in how much has been brought in. But it's also been a while ago that we actually brought this forward. We're looking a lot more money today available than when we initially brought this idea up. And in a way, this will also serve as a referendum to the citizens on what their priorities are. This is something that no matter what decision you make, if it gets on the ballot, it's still going to be up to the citizens. It's still going to be their choice. Do we spend the money this way or that? And this gives us an option, it gives the voters an option to say, at least this much money is going to go to street maintenance every year. How you reallocate the general fund money to deal with this, even if that means that we take general fund money to incentivize an economic project, that's probably still money well spent. But right now, we cannot touch that half-cent money to do any road that's not directly tied to an economic development project. You have similar restrictions on a lot of these different, whether you're talking a venue fee, a venue tax, whether you're talking hot tax, they are targeted to do specific things, and most of them cannot be used for general road maintenance. This is a fund source that's all it can be used for, is street maintenance. You can't even use it to build a new road. If the road's not there, you can't spend this money on it. It has to be used to fix the roads we have. And which brings me to the point that people have brought up, yes, we do need our own street crew, because when we outsourced it, it got ignored. It's the same problem we had when the water pipes burst, because when we outsourced that, they saved the money, but they never spent the money to do the valve and other maintenance on the water pipes that they said they were going to do. This guarantees that if you have your own street maintenance crew, they're going to be out there fixing the street, rather than money sitting in the general fund that really needs to go out there to prevent the deterioration that we've seen in all our infrastructure, starting with the water pipes, the roads, City Hall, the buildings that we have, all of this infrastructure. This is something that the City Council and the city government holds in trust for the citizens of San Angelo. Spending it on other projects without taking care of the basics first, even if it's for a noble cause of bringing in jobs, is really avoiding a fundamental duty that the city of San Angelo has to the citizens that trust them to make sure that everything that the city is supposed to do at the basics, whether it's roads, water, public safety, is done. Thank you.
You have your instructions.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, Sue.
Sue Mims. I come to you from a perspective of someone who spent 10 years as Director of Planning and Analysis at a major research university and 10 years as a manager in a Fortune 500 company. In principle, I think we should strongly work toward including ongoing responsibilities into the ongoing budget as opposed to, looking for found money. I understand the problem of the roads and the problem of getting, if they will get worse if we don't do something about it. I appreciate that. At the same time, while I've heard various proposals of how to spend the money, I think before taking an action like proposing the vote, that we hear a more concrete plan with targets about how we are going to accomplish building the road maintenance and support into the ongoing budget of a target of X more dollars in the next budget and the next budget. City council members 4 and 8 years back have left you in this pickle, and so I ask you, what kind of pickle might you be leaving your future replacements in, depending on the action that you take? The other thing that I would note, a suggestion to bring back proposals here next time. If you'll recall, when we established the first vote on the half-cent sales tax, there was considerable citizen input in terms of the types of projects and the amount. I would say one or more public hearings is strongly needed, even outside of City Council, in terms of really looking at the potential composition of items. If the movement is to go through to have a vote, then we need more public input in advance and not simply a one-time vote.
Thanks, Sid. Anyone else got a comment? Daniel, do you have your instructions?
We have
you know
our
about
instructions. Absolutely.
what we want? Bring it back and we'll make some decisions. All right, let's move on to number 17, which is consideration of introducing an ordinance increasing the number of members on the Public Housing Authority from 5 to 7 and other related provisions. We dealt with this just a couple of months ago. Becky Salady was here with the PHA. PHA had determined that the Public Housing Board could go to 7 members from 5 members. I spoke to Tony Villarreal, who is the chair of this board. Tony wanted to go to 7 members from 5 members, and PHA gave him the authority. The City Council, though, has to authorize or recognize, approve any decisions that they make. The problem Tony was having with 5 members is that if 2 of them didn't show up, they couldn't even conduct business. He said they never had a quorum. Many times they did not have a quorum. Many times they could not have a meeting because with 5 members they simply could not get enough people to attend the meetings to deal with it, and it was becoming a problem. So they brought it to us after PHA had said go to 7, and they appointed the 7, and the mayor appoints those. They brought it to council, and council told them, no, we don't want you to have 7, we only want you to have 5. It's still a problem. Now those 2 members need to be either appointed or told to leave, and I asked that this be put back on. I would like for there to be 7 members on the PHA board, as the PHA administration says they need, and really all they need from us is just a stamp that approves what PHA has done. Did I pretty well explain that, sir?
Yes, I'll move to approve this item as is.
7? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Wasn't it just within the last 2 years that we changed them from 7 down to 5 because they were having trouble getting 7 people on the board. But I didn't understand, you said if 2 people didn't show up, they couldn't have a meeting. It's 3 out of 5 is a quorum, isn't it?
If 3 don't show up, then you don't have a quorum.
If 3 don't show up, then you don't have a quorum. I understand
Yeah,
that.
but really on something this important, 3 members is not enough. That's not
I
enough.
agree.
I don't remember us making any changes. I know it was 5, and then PHA took them to 7, and we told them, no, you can't have 7, and we took them back to 5. I remember that, but I don't remember another decision.
Yeah, it was a couple of years. I used to serve on that board, and it was 7 when I served on it. It was 7, and then here, within the last couple of years, we took it to 5.
Right, no, what you're recalling is, we had to update the ordinance to reflect their action of 7 members, so that's what we did. We updated the ordinance to 7, and then, it was never, okay. You're right.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
that, from,
But that's neither here nor there. That's what we had done because they couldn't make the meetings, and if they want to try it again, I don't object to it, but it was hard with 7.
what we were told last time was that they couldn't get enough members that wanted to participate enough with 7, so it dropped back to 5.
Right.
And then they wanted it to go back up to 7 for a quorum, which seems like we're spitting in the wind on this thing, but if that's what they want to do, well, I have no problem with it.
Well, they have 7 strong members now that want to be members.
Right, and the issue lied in the tenants. You have to have at least 2 tenants on the board. That's where they were having problems with obtaining a second tenant.
Okay.
Residents fear retaliation if they complain about something via board, and so nobody wants to serve.
But really 5, I think is, and if you're missing a couple, that's a big decision and a lot of money for 3 people to make the decision on. So they've asked that it go back to 7. Johnny's made the motion that it go back to 7. If somebody want to second it?
Second.
I have a second. They would take them back to 7. That way PHA agrees and we agree and we can make the ordinance agree and we can all sing Kumbaya and everything's straight. Any comment from the council further?
I will say, once a quarter, occasionally we used to get a report from PHA as to how many folks they were housing and what participation, whether it was Section 8 or what type of program, how many people are in what type of program. We haven't seen that in years.
We need to get Tony here to give us an update, he and Becky Saturday.
I'll make contact.
Okay. It's all Tony's fault. Anybody want to comment from the public? Motion to go from 5 to 7, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on it. Okay, follow-up administrative, 18, consideration of executive, and we will be going into executive after we take care of 19, 20, and 21. Executive is 19 and 20. Executive is, we've got a lot of issues to cover. Executive's probably going to take about an hour and a half. So if we can get 19 and 20 taken care of, we'll go into executive, and then we'll come back, and it's going to take just a minute or two to take care of that.
If no one has a concern, I'll make a motion that I move that we accept all of item 19, all 4 items, all 4 people.
One question. I have had some discussion on number A. I have had one person ask that we pull number A for future consideration. That's, Johnny, is that your appointment?
It's Rodney's.
Number 3.
Yes.
No, it's not mine.
Oh, no.
It's number 3.
Yeah.
What do you think on it, Johnny? I mean, it's your decision.
I say let's pull it because I've had the same discussion.
And I amend my motion that I move that we accept B, C, and D.
Do I have a motion to approve 19, B, C, and D, and that we pull A for another time? Anyone will second that?
Second.
Any further comment from the council? Do I have comment from the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Announcements, consideration, future agenda items. Start with you, Don.
I don't have any at this time.
Except the 8-cent sales tax.
Yeah, and that's
Charlotte?
coming back.
I think they've got a boatload.
Johnny?
Teacher? Yes, I want the workman's comp insurance discussion.
Marty?
I have none at this time.
Fleming?
Nothing.
Then, I guess, boss, you have your work. You have your work cut out for you. Let's go into executive right now. Let me read the legalities on this. It is going to take about an hour and a half. Once we get back, I don't know that there will be anything that we're just going to discuss some law and some things there. I don't know that there will be anything that we vote on, but we will do this when we get back. It is going to be about an hour and a half. Executive closed session, executive session. Under the Division of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, Exceptions to Requirement the meetings be open under the following sections. Number 1, Section 5510711, to consult with attorney on pending or contemplated litigation related to, number 1, alleged non-compliance with agreement for waste collection, disposal, and landfill lease and operation between the City of San Angelo, Republic Waste Service Detectives, effective August 1, 2004. Number 2, pending litigation involving one or more water rights owned by the City of San Angelo. Section 5510712, to consult with attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Conduct, Professional Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflict with the chapter regarding number 1, termination of the water purchase contract dated May 22, 1979 between the City of San Angelo and Millersview Dual Water Supply Corporation. Section 55107.2, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property regarding Lake Nasworthy. Section 55108.7, to discuss an offer or financial or other incentive to a company or companies with whom the City of San Angelo is conducting economic development negotiations and which the City of San Angelo seeks to have, locate, stay, or expand in San Angelo. It's 11:57. I take us to executive. Ready? It is 1:40. We do have a quorum. I'm going to call this meeting back to order. As far as the items on executive, there were no items that we discussed in executive that require any action. So, no action required for executive. And that leaves us only one thing left on our agenda, and I'm asking for your help, Council.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm going to take Charlotte's motion and Marty's second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
This meeting's over.